All right, students, so this is the last one on proofs. So you should be on page 61, number 2 for Beat the Test. So this question says that we are given line 1 and line 2 to be parallel, and we are trying to, or we're also given angle 2 and angle 4 to be congruent. And we're trying to prove that angle 1 and angle 4 are congruent, and angle 4 and angle 3 are congruent. So let's look at our two-column proof. So they gave us the first statement and reason, and that's kind of obvious. We already know that the lines 1 and 2 are parallel, and angles 2 and 4 are congruent, so obviously that's given. They tell us that in statement number 2, angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent by vertical angles, and we can see that's true. Angles 1 and angle 2 are opposite of each other. They share a common vertex. So we know that their measures are equal. So vertical angle theorem is obvious for the reason. Now they move on to say that angle 1 and angle 4 are congruent. So it's like, well, how do we get from angle 1 to this lonely angle over here, angle 4? Well, let's look at what was given to us previously. So they previously told us that angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent. So we got 2 and 4 congruent in statement 1. And in statement 2, they said 1 and 2 are congruent. So we see a common denominator here. We see angle 2 is in the first statement with angle 4, and we see angle 2 is in the second statement with angle 1. So if angle 2 and 4 are congruent, and angle 1 and 2 are congruent, then that leaves me with these two angles, right? So if 2 is the common angle between the both of them that are congruent, then obviously 1 and 4 have to be congruent as well. Now let's think about the reason. So the reason would have to be the transitive property. So if you go back to lesson 3, or I believe that's lesson 2 of topic 1, we talked about all of the properties of equality, right? So remember, the transitive property says that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C, because we have a common denominator between the two. We see that A and B are equal, B and C are equal, so that leaves A and C to be equal to each other. Same thing. The common denominator between these two statements is 2. So that leaves us with 1 and 4 being equal to each other, or congruent in this case to each other. All right, let's look at statement number 4. So statement number 4 says that angles 1 and 3 now are congruent. So if I look at angles 1 and 3, let's look at the position. We do have parallel lines because that was given to us, and we do have a transversal of T. So if I look at the position of angles 1 and 3, I see that they're on the same side of the transversal, and they are both in the same position. Angle 1 is above line 1, and angle 3 is above line 2. So if they're in the same position on the same side of the transversal, then that means that these two angles are corresponding. So this will be the corresponding angles theorem, right? And then if it's the corresponding angles theorem, if I know that angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent, then that leads me to proving the statement that we are originally trying to prove, that angle 4 and angle 3 are congruent. And again, we have that same situation that we had with statements 1 and 2 with the transitive property. If angle 1 and angle 4 are congruent, and angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent, guess what they have in common? They have angle 1 in common. So that leaves me with angle 4 and 3 also being congruent, which leads us to the transitive property of congruence. All right, guys, so that ends today's lesson on parallel lines with transversals, talking about proofs. You're going to move on to the lesson practice, which is in your iExcel recommended lessons. And then once you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and do the quizzes activity. The code and everything is in Microsoft Teams. See you guys soon, and have a wonderful day.